There's a new report out from the Low Income Housing Coalition, and they crunched some federal data to see what it's like to live on minimum wage in different states. And the results are disturbing. So let me show you their chart here. Okay, those numbers that you see there, that's the number of hours you would need to work in each state in order to make enough money to live in a one-bedroom apartment. Now, what you'll notice is you can't afford it in any of the places. Here's the conclusion of the report. Quote, there is no state in the U.S. where a full-time minimum wage worker can afford the rent of a one-bedroom apartment. So minimum wage workers cannot afford to live even in the most meager ways, in the most frugal ways. That is absolutely stunning. They say the national average housing wage in 2015 is $19.35 for a two-bedroom unit and $15.50 for a one-bedroom unit, while the federal minimum wage remains at $7.25 per hour. So what they're saying is that's basically what you need to live. Even in a one-bedroom apartment, you need to make $15.50 an hour. There's a lot of people that are not making $15.50 an hour, okay? And this is them saying, it's not like, if you make $15.50, you'll be able to live in a one-bedroom apartment and have all these other amenities that many other people get to enjoy. No, it's like you can barely scrape by, maybe, if you make $15.50 an hour and you live in a one-bedroom apartment. Ooh, that's not good, man. That's not good. And we've spoken about this before, and I was reminded of it when going over the facts of this case. It's almost like if you really try to be as objective as possible when you look at this story, you come to the conclusion that 100 years from now, we're going to look back at a story like this and go, oh my God. I mean, it's basically what we're looking at here is a system that's just one tiny step above slavery. I mean, that's really what it is. And there is a term for this. It's used, in certain political science circles and certain economic circles to describe stuff like this. It's called wage slavery. So you can work a full-time job and not make enough money to pay for your basic necessities. That's referred to as wage slavery. In other words, you are doing your part for society, you are doing your part for the economy, and you're simply not making enough money to live a bare minimum, frugal, meager, cheap lifestyle. See, understand, this is where the conservatives are so disastrously wrong. That's not a problem with any individual person. It's not a moral failing. You don't just need more work ethic in order to get over that hump. That's what we call a systemic problem. That's what we call a deeper economic problem. That's a fundamental flaw in the way the economy functions and the way our government functions. That's not something you point your finger at an individual and say, why don't you just get your shit together? I don't understand. Because their response could be, asshole, I work 58 hours a week. I still can't live in a one-bedroom apartment, and I got 2 kids I gotta feed. You're gonna blame me? I'm doing everything I can. And that's the difference, broadly speaking, between conservatives and liberals. Is that, liberals understand that, by and large, the overwhelming majority of people are just trying their best to get by, make a decent life for themselves and other people and their family members, for example. And so we get that part. So then it just becomes common sense to try to craft a system that allows people to not be poor if they're working full-time. Whereas the conservatives, it's never enough for them. They view people as like, everybody's a bad guy but me. Because, of course, if they fall on hard times, well, then it's a systemic problem. But if you fall on hard times, if you're poor or you're black or you're Muslim or anything like that, well, then it's your fault. It's not the system's fault, it's your fault. They don't understand that I'm not even a big-time progressive. I'm not even a big-time liberal in this respect. All a guy like me is asking for is pay these people a living wage. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. Pay them enough so that they work a full-time job and they can survive and pay for basic necessities. And maybe if you work full-time, you should be able to afford a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment. That's all I'm asking for. That's not radical. That's not out there far on the left. That's fucking centrism. That's moderation. That's common sense. So I'm not a liberal here. There are people way to the left of me on this issue where they want to change the system completely, get rid of capitalism, bring in a new way of doing it, bring in communal societies and things of that nature. But understand, that's where the real debate is happening. The real debate is between people like me, who are more moderate, or maybe even more conservative on this, that say just do a living wage, and the people who are saying, no, the whole system is flawed, we got to redo this whole system because it's failed so miserably. That's the real debate. What's not debatable is the way the system is right now. What's not debatable is the establishment essentially putting their middle finger up and saying, we don't give a fuck if you can't survive even though you're working full time. Those people are outside of the spectrum of the debate. They're out there in fascism land, right? They're out there in uneducated political idiocy land where they don't know their ass from their elbow about what really goes on in the world, and they're just, making decisions based off of their emotions. The fact that anybody could look at this and argue that we should live in a country where you work full-time and you can't survive, well, that just shows you how far to the right this country has gotten on the spectrum.